Betrayal never announces itself. It slips in quietly, like a shadow in the night, tearing apart everything you once believed to be unshakable. For me, it came wrapped not only in broken promises, but in the bitter truth that the person I trusted the most was also the one who destroyed me. What began as love turned into a battlefield of lies, secrets, and prejudice that cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. If I had known what waited on the other side of that slammed door, perhaps I would have begged differently. But sometimes fate teaches you lessons in the harshest ways, lessons you never forget. Life had once felt like a neatly folded picture. I was 32, married for 6 years, and living in a neighborhood that seemed to breathe with comfort. Our home was modest but warm. Photographs lined the walls, the kind that made visitors say we looked like the perfect couple. To outsiders, we were everything a family should be: stable, committed, respectable. But behind those smiling pictures, cracks had begun to form. At first, they were too small to notice. A forgotten anniversary dinner. A distant look across the breakfast table. A sudden preoccupation with work. I told myself these were normal. Marriage wasn't a fairy tale after all. Everyone went through seasons of silence. I tried to distract myself with my own work. Teaching at the community school gave me purpose, but it also exposed me to the reality of injustice that many tried to ignore. I taught history, not the neat, polished version found in textbooks, but the raw truths of resilience and struggle. My students came from different backgrounds, many carrying burdens of inequality. I often reminded them that knowing the past was the first step in challenging the present. Still, I never expected those lessons about injustice would creep into my own marriage. My husband, let's call him Marcus, was ambitious, steady, and, at one point, tender. He came from a family that valued appearances above all. His parents had never hidden their disdain for me, though they cloaked it in politeness. I wasn't from their social class. I wasn't the right fit. My background was different. My heritage marked me in their eyes as an outsider. I had thought love was stronger than those biases. But subtle comments chipped away at me. A quiet remark about how I dressed. A sigh when I spoke my opinion too freely at dinner. A look that said I should know my place. Marcus always brushed it off, telling me not to take things personally. I believed him because belief was easier than confrontation. As months turned into years, Marcus grew more distant. His phone was always buzzing with late-night calls. Work trips became longer, unexplained. The smell of perfume that wasn't mine lingered faintly on his clothes. I told myself I was imagining things because the truth would hurt too much. And yet, deep down, I already knew. The betrayal wasn't just about a marriage faltering. It was about power, about silence, about a system that told me my voice wasn't worth raising. It was about standing in a house filled with reminders of love, yet feeling like an uninvited guest. The night everything changed began like any other. Dinner was cold on the table. Marcus walked in late, distracted, barely looking at me. I tried to reach for him with words, but his answers were curt. Finally, I asked the question that had been burning in me for months. "Where are you really spending your time?" He froze. And in that frozen silence, I saw the truth reflected back. He didn't need to answer. His eyes told me everything. I whispered, almost to myself, "So it's true." And then came the moment that split my life in two. His hand was on the doorknob. My voice cracked as I said the words that would forever echo. "Fine, leave. But if you walk out that door, our marriage is over." He didn't turn around. He didn't argue. He didn't even hesitate. The door slammed. And I thought that was the end. But betrayal is never just about leaving. It's about what comes after, the unraveling of truths you wish had stayed hidden. In the days that followed, silence filled every corner of my home. His absence wasn't just physical, it was an erasure. No messages, no explanations. Just absence. I kept waiting for the sound of his key turning in the lock, but it never came. Instead, whispers began to reach me. Small-town whispers always find their way to the abandoned. A colleague at work mentioned seeing Marcus with someone else. A neighbor casually remarked about his car parked outside a downtown apartment late at night. Each comment sliced into me, confirmation of what I had tried so hard not to believe. But the betrayal ran deeper than infidelity. It was who he had chosen. She was someone his family approved of. Someone from the right side of society. Educated, polished, connected. The kind of woman they had always hoped he would marry instead of me. And suddenly, their polite disdain made sense. To them, I had never belonged. To them, I had been a mistake that could be corrected. I replayed every moment of our marriage in my head, wondering if it had all been staged. Did he ever love me, or had I simply been a placeholder until someone better came along? The injustice burned. Not only because of what Marcus had done, but because of what it revealed about the world around me. In the eyes of many, betrayal against me wasn't betrayal at all, it was correction. They saw me as less, so of course I was replaceable. I tried to find strength in my work, pouring myself into lessons that suddenly felt more personal than ever. When I spoke to my students about resilience, I was speaking to myself. When I told them about injustice, I was telling them that silence is complicity. But strength only carries you so far when your nights are haunted by questions. I lay awake wondering why I wasn't enough. Why promises made with trembling hands on our wedding day could vanish so easily. Why love wasn't enough to overcome prejudice. And then, as if betrayal wasn't cruel enough, the world decided to test me further. Rumors swirled that Marcus wasn't just with her, he was building a new life. A new future. The whispers painted pictures of dinners with her family, vacations, plans for children. The same dreams we had once shared, now handed to someone else as though I had never existed. Every injustice I had ever taught about now lived in my bones. Friends advised me to move on, to rebuild, to see as leaving as freedom. But betrayal doesn't free you, it cages you with doubt. Every memory becomes a weapon. Every photograph a wound. And no matter how strong you appear, the echo of abandonment gnaws at you in the quiet hours. The rising tide of anger and grief threatened to drown me. Yet, deep down, a part of me knew the storm had not yet peaked. Because betrayal always saves its sharpest blade for the climax. The truth finally reached me one gray morning, carried not by whispers but by undeniable evidence. A letter arrived, misdelivered to my mailbox, addressed to Marcus. My hands trembled as I held it, debating whether to open it. But betrayal had already robbed me of boundaries, so I tore it open. The words inside confirmed everything. Plans for a wedding. Plans for a future. Her name written beside his in careful, elegant script. I sank to the floor, the letter crumpled in my fists. It wasn't just an affair. It was a replacement. The climax of betrayal is not the moment someone leaves, it's the moment you realize they have already erased you from their story. But what broke me even more was what I discovered days later. Marcus had petitioned to annul our marriage, claiming it had been a mistake. His reasons? Differences in class, family expectations, incompatibility. Cold words that stripped me of humanity, reducing me to a line in a legal document. He wasn't just betraying me. He was rewriting history to pretend our love had never existed. And society applauded him. His family celebrated. Friends we once shared quietly sided with him, preferring comfort over truth. To them, I was nothing more than a chapter to be crossed out. The injustice was suffocating. Not only had I been betrayed by the man I loved, but by the very structures that allowed betrayal to flourish. In that moment of despair, I felt rage like I had never known. Rage not just at Marcus, but at every system that had told me my worth was conditional. At every voice that whispered I didn't belong. At every polite smile that hid a sneer. I wanted to scream, to burn the world down, to erase him the way he had erased me. But betrayal doesn't just destroy, it forces you to choose. To sink into bitterness or to rise in defiance. And so, on the night that would have been our anniversary, I chose. I gathered every photograph, every letter, every reminder of the life we had shared. I laid them on the floor, one by one, and stared at them. Not with longing, but with clarity. These were not treasures. They were chains. With steady hands, I set them alight. The flames consumed the paper quickly, turning years of love into smoke. As the fire crackled, I felt a weight lift. It wasn't healing, not yet. But it was release. The climax of betrayal had tried to erase me. But in those flames, I wrote myself back into existence. Life after betrayal is not about returning to who you were. It's about becoming someone new. I rebuilt slowly, piece by piece. Teaching remained my anchor, but now my lessons carried a sharper edge. When I spoke of injustice, I spoke from lived experience. When I told my students to rise above betrayal, I spoke as someone who had survived it. Marcus went on with his life, married her, built the future we once dreamed of. And maybe, in his world, that was victory. But betrayal teaches you that victory is not about what you gain, it's about what you endure. I endured. The whispers faded. The pitying looks disappeared. And one day, I realized I no longer waited for his key in the lock. I no longer replayed our moments with longing. The betrayal that once defined me had become a scar, not an open wound. And with that scar, I carried strength. Because betrayal, as cruel as it is, forces you to see the truth, not just about others, but about yourself. I learned I was stronger than abandonment, braver than silence, greater than the prejudice that tried to diminish me. So now, when I tell my story, I tell it not as a victim, but as a survivor. Betrayal may have shattered my past, but it also carved a path to a future built on resilience. And I leave you with this question. When betrayal knocks on your door, will you let it define you, or will you rise from its ashes? The choice, painful as it is always yours.